තවත් තිකු කලක් රැඳෙන්න ඩබල් පර්ෆියුම් ලුක් සමගින් එන නව සන්ලයිට් රෝස්.
Tonight, time for the bill. Sri Lanka sends $40 million interim claim to MV Express Pearl operators. Melting pot. Fuel price hike leaves the public disgruntled while the SLPP calls for the subject minister's resignation. Message to the president. The SLMA calls a further 2-week lockdown from the 14th. All that and much more coming up on First at 9, this Saturday, the 12th of June, 2021.
කට උත්තර නැති වෙන්න කලින් සිග්නල් ඩීප් ක්ලීන් එකකට මාරු වෙන්න.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to First at 9. I'm Dhamike Kanaka. Now let's start with the local stories. Following a 21-month hiatus, the island saw a fuel price hike effective from last midnight. Petrol prices have shot up with both octane 92 and 95 jumping by a minimum of 20 rupees. The margin of price increase in diesel was more kinder, with super diesel being increased by 12 rupees. The move by the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation prompted the Lanka Indian Oil Company to follow suit as well.
Crude oil prices globally have been steadily on the decline since the beginning of 2020, with prices reaching a low of under $19 per barrel through the first 5 months of 2020 due to the COVID-19-induced slump. Eventually, with countries around the world easing pandemic restrictions and bringing economic activities back to normal, oil prices recovered, rising to fresh highs. At present, the Brent crude oil price is above the $71 mark per barrel. The $72.69 per barrel price is a 2-year high for Brent. Convening a media briefing yesterday, the government indicated a looming price hike, stating that the prices are being deliberated. Minister of Energy Udaya Gammanpilla said that the government is finding it difficult to bear the annual cost of $3 billion to import fuel and that some of the burden has to be transferred to the people. It was also mentioned at the media briefing that even the central bank had advised the government to move for a fuel price hike. Minister Gammanpilla said that when the price hike would come into effect would be announced later owing to the prevailing pandemic situation. However, hours later the government announced a fuel price hike effective from midnight. It is also the first fuel price increase introduced by the present government. The price of octane 92 petrol went up by 20 rupees, with a litre to be sold at 157 rupees. The price of octane 95 petrol will now be sold at 184 rupees, following a jump of 23 rupees in price. Auto diesel went up by 7 rupees to a market price of 111 rupees, while super diesel was increased by 12 rupees to 144 rupees per litre. Kerosene too was subjected to a price hike of 7 rupees, taking a litre of kerosene price from 70 to 77 rupees. In line with the government's price hike, Lanka IOC too increased their prices with effect from last midnight. The government's announcement of a fuel price hike had a profound effect on consumers, with long queues observed near fuel stations.
We can't do anything about it, no? The government decides, they have their this thing to pay, cost of living is going up, can't help it.
මේ වෙලාවේදී අපි හයරනේ දුවන්නේ හයර එක වැඩි කරන්න වෙනවා පැහැදිලිවම.
රටේ තියෙන තත්ත්වෙත් එක්කලා මං හිතන්නේ ඉතින් වැඩි නොකරත් බෑ කියලා.
එකපාරට 20ක් වැඩි කරපු එක නම් හරි නෑනේ.
කොහොමත් ඉතින් ඒක ගාණක් නෑ අපිට. කොහොම කරත් අපි තෙල් ගහනවනේ. දුප්පත් මිනිහාගේ බඩට මේක වදින්නේ. මේ වැඩෙන්. හිතන්න දෙයක් නෑ ඉතින් වැඩි කරාම ගෙවන්න තියෙන්නේ අපිට.
මේ වගේ වෙලාවක තෙල් වැඩි වෙච්ච එක නම් ඉතින් අපිට දරා ගන්න අමාරුයි. මොකද ආදායම් මාර්ග ඔක්කොම ඇන හිටරනේ තියෙන්නේ.
කාලගුණය කොහොම වුණත් රයිනෝ නම් වහලට සේෆ් තමයි මුළු ගෙදරම.
In the meantime, the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna issued a media communique today criticising the subject minister for leaving the government in difficulty by increasing the fuel prices. The communique signed by the party's General Secretary, Attorney at Law Sagara Karyawasam, says that the minister's failure to take necessary decisions at relevant junctures had led to the situation. It says that the party's stance is that the fuel price hike should not have happened and that the situation should be changed, given the fact that the move piles more burden on the people already suffering from the pandemic. Further, the communique casts doubt whether the fuel price hike is a move to bring the party and its leaders into disrepute. In conclusion, the party calls for the subject minister to take full responsibility for giving rise to the situation and calls for his resignation. Now, moving on with other local stories. Sri Lanka has sought an interim claim to the tune of $40 million from the operator of the MV Express Pearl to cover part of the cost incurred in fighting the blaze. This comes at the heels of the Prime Minister's directives to allow fishing activities along the affected coastline, followed by a proper study and fishermen catching a foam-like substance in their nets. Meanwhile, maritime law expert Dr. Dan Gunasekara is of the view that Sri Lanka's dream of becoming a maritime and a logistics hub is discouraged by the weak legislation the country possesses with regard to the laws of the sea.
In a bid to resume fishing activities which came to a standstill following the MV Express Pearl disaster, Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa has issued directives to the officials concerned to conduct a comprehensive study on the coastline stretching from Panadura to Negombo. The directive came during a meeting held at the Temple Trees yesterday.
පානදුරේ ඉඳලා මීගමුව දක්වා මේ වෙරළාසන්නේ මත් ඒ කලාපය අපි දීවර කටයුතු අත්හිටවලා තියෙන්නේ. මේකේ ඇති වෙච්ච බලපෑම හින්දා සර් ඍජුවම ඉන්නවා පවුල් 20000ක් විතර වගේ සර් මීගමුව කලාපේ මේ කර්මාන්තය අහිමි වෙච්ච. සර් එදා උපදෙස් දුන්න රුපියල් 5000 දීමනාව ඒ කට්ටියට දෙන්න කියලා. හැබැයි තාම වෙනකන් සර් රුපියල් 5000 දීමනාව අපිට දෙන්න බැරි වෙලා තියෙනවා ඒ පිරිසට. ඒ සල්ලි ටික සඳට දෙන්න හැදුවේ. හරි සර්.
Meanwhile, fishermen in the area of Lunava in Usvatakeyava had ventured into sea last night. However, their attempts to catch fish had proved to be futile. Instead of fish, the nets had been full of what the fishermen called a weird substance similar to that of cotton, also seen along the affected coastline previously. In the meantime, with the entire country holding their breath in expectation of a report from the National Aquatic Resources Research and Development Agency, which will verify whether there is an oil leak from the partially submerged vessel, it is reported that Sri Lanka is seeking an interim claim. $40 million is said to be the claim sought from the operator of the cargo vessel MV Express Pearl to cover part of the cost fighting the blaze. Chief of the Marine Environment Protection Authority Darshini Lahandapura is quoted today by international media as saying that the Attorney General has sent the claim to lawyers representing the ship's operating company, Express Feeders. Further, the authorities are still assessing the total damages and the interim claim seeks compensation for expenses from the 20th of May when the ship caught fire through to the 1st of June. What's more, maritime law expert Dr. Dan Malika Gunasekara is of the view that Sri Lanka is often at a disadvantage due to the lack of legal and technical preparedness when dealing with similar situations. He made these remarks speaking to Indivari Amuwatta on our Current Affairs program at Hyde Park on AdaDerana 24.
Going forward, we're talking about being a maritime hub. We're talking about attracting more and more vessels to the country. But the law of the sea, you're an expert in this. How strong are we here?
The CEO of the ship owning company has unconditionally apologized to the people of Sri Lanka. So that shows there is a way that we can reduce liability on the ship owning company. And also on the fact that what the crew has done wrong here is that bringing an unseaworthy ship to our most pristine waters, because you are not supposed to bring an unseaworthy ship to Sri Lanka. Our problem is that we do not have penalties when unseaworthy ship is brought into this country. Our legal system, our legal instruments are not strong enough to address these kinds of situations. So this is something that is very important for the preparedness that you are asking me. Just leave out the legal preparedness for a moment. If you look at the technical preparedness, we do have what we call the National Oil Spill Contingency Plan, NOSCOP. If you compare with other countries, especially the states that border to highly dense dense shipping lanes. Like Sri Lanka is one of the highly dense shipping lanes. Now here what we have to do is take out the experiences of such other countries that border such high density lanes in the world. And if you look at those countries, they have brought not only the oil spill contingency plans, but also with regard to chemical spills, with regard to radioactive materials, with regard to other areas. So they are much more prepared in terms of whatever the circumstance that may occur at any moment. But here, I'm not going to pass the ball on the MIPA, because MIPA has to act according to their present legislation within their powers that have been given. So within their powers, they have done the NOSCOP. But NOSCOP alone is not sufficient here. We need to have other types of contingency plans. It's very easy. We don't have to reinvent things. There are a lot of experiences that we can take out from the world. So in that way, we were not prepared.
We will see you once more on the other side of this break. Stay with us.
ගෙදරකට තේ හදනවා කියන්නේ වෙනම වැඩක්. මෙලිබන්ටේ ගෙදර පදමට තේ.
Welcome back. You're watching First at 9. Now, health authorities insist that delays in confirming a COVID death cannot be avoided. It comes at a time when questions are raised over months-old deaths continue to be confirmed as COVID-related. Meanwhile, the European Medicines Agency announced another side effect of the AstraZeneca vaccine. The agency has called for the blood condition capillary leak syndrome to be notified on the labelling of the AstraZeneca's jab marketed in Europe.
Yesterday, 2,789 new COVID-19 infections were confirmed from Sri Lanka, as per data released by the Epidemiology Unit. Excluding the 30 imported cases reported among yesterday's caseload, the rest were recorded across all 25 districts of the country. The Gampar district topped the list with 741 cases, while Colombo recorded 505 infections. 397 fresh cases were confirmed from the district of Ratnapura, 181 from Kalutara and 145 from Kurunegala. The Western province accounted for the bulk of yesterday's infections with 1,427. There, however, is a considerable gap to the next highest provincial infections from yesterday, as the Uva province reported 447 cases. The North Central province meanwhile confirmed the lowest number of infections with 63. In the meantime, Director General of Health Services Dr. Asala Gunawardhanam confirmed that 62 COVID-19 patients had succumbed to the virus from the 8th of May until the 10th of June. 7 fatalities had taken place between the 8th and the 31st of May, while the remaining 55 had occurred between the 1st and the 10th of June. 53 of the deaths confirmed yesterday, however, are those above the age of 60. According to the Department of Government Information, 44 of the victims had succumbed to the virus while being treated at hospitals.
දත්ත හංගනවා නම් ප්‍රමාද වී හෝ එළියට ඒමක් මං හිතන්නේ සිද්ධ වෙන්න බෑ හංගනවා නම්
මේ මරණ 101කට පෙබරවාරි මරණක් තියෙනවා මාස 5ක වගේ කාලයක් ගත වෙනවද PCR ඔය කියන ප්‍රායෝගික ගැටලුවට निराකරණය කරලා
යම් කිසි සුළු ප්‍රතිශතයක් පමණයි ඒ කියන්නේ එකක් දෙකක් තමයි ඒ වගේ ඊටාම පරණ ඒවා තිබුණේ. නමුත් මේවා අසාමාන්‍ය සාමාන්‍යයෙන් කියන්නේ ඒකට හේතුව තමයි නීතිමය ගැටලු හෝ තාක්ෂණික ගැටලුවක් මත මේක කොවිඩ් මරණයක් දැයි ප්‍රකාශ කරන්න ගත වුණු කාලය නිසායි. ඒවා හැරුණුකොට ඉතුරු සියල්ලම වාගේ ඊටා සුළු කාලයකදී ඒ විතරක් නෙවෙයි මේ මරණය සිද්ධ වුණු දිනය අනුව මේ මරණය පිළිබඳව ප්‍රමාද වී හෝ තීරණයකට එළඹුණාට පස්සේ ඒ දිනයට මේ මරණ බැර කරනවා. ඒ අනුව ඉදිරියේදී තවත් මීටත් වඩා හුඟක් ඒවා යාවත් කාලීන වෙයි. නමුත් ප්‍රමාද වී වාර්තා වන එහෙම නැත්නම් මේ මරණය කොවිඩ් මරණයත්යි ප්‍රකාශයට පත් කරන්න ප්‍රමාද වෙන අවස්ථා නොවැළැක්විය හැකියි.
In the meantime, there was a massive queue of people waiting entry at the Biyagama hospital today. They had queued up in hope of obtaining the Sinopharm vaccine against the novel coronavirus. With a countrywide strike by health sector yesterday, people had been unable to get vaccinated. As a result, they had come in mass today. In another development, a discussion was held at the Ministry of Health today under the patronage of the subject minister. The talks were held on the issues that have arisen in the vaccination program due to the withdrawal of Grama Nildaris from the inoculation drive in the Colombo district. It had been decided to prioritize officials involved in the program at the Grama Nildari division level for vaccination owing to them being at high risk of contracting the virus. During the discussion, health sector representatives noted the rollout of the second dose of the jab can be done sans the involvement of the Gram Nildaris. However, they are needed for the first dose rollout. The Gram Nildaris had then agreed to assist the rollout of the first dose. Meanwhile, yesterday 45,580 persons were vaccinated with the second dose of the Sinopharm vaccine, while 42,565 were given the first dose of the same vaccine. So far, a total of 78,025 people have been completely immunized with the Sinopharm vaccine. In addition, 184 persons also received the second dose of the AstraZeneca jab yesterday. Meanwhile, amidst the rise in COVID-19 cases, the number of persons recovering from the virus also continues to increase. Today, the country saw the recovery of 2,426 people from the virus. However, 1,633 new infections have been confirmed in the island today so far, taking the number of active cases in Sri Lanka to 31,967.
Now, the Sri Lanka Medical Association has called for authorities to extend the current lockdown in place for at least until the 28th. It's one of 6 recommendations made as part of a letter submitted to President Gotabaya Rajapaksa.
The Sri Lanka Medical Association has sent a letter to President Gotabaya Rajapaksa yesterday on effectively controlling the current COVID-19 pandemic in the island. They called for the current lockdown to be extended at the very minimum for a further period of 2 weeks from the 14th of June. The SLMA also wants to see the movement restrictions being implemented more stringently, allowing only the very minimum number of persons to leave their homes. Increase in surveillance for COVID-19 in factories and workplaces that continue to function during the lockdown period by increasing testing and isolating positive cases is also called for. Further, the disallowing of tourism from countries that have ongoing COVID-19 transmission in order to avert a major risk of introducing new, more highly transmissible and deadly variants of the virus. It also suggests increasing the number of PCR tests done randomly to detect the true number of cases in the community. The Sri Lanka Medical Association also calls for the improvement of the communication strategy to get better compliance from the people on strictly adhering to the public health measures being recommended for COVID-19 control. In the meantime, economic centres across the country were open for trading activities today and will also remain open tomorrow as well. However, traders complain that the vegetable and fruit prices have increased in contrast to what is being depicted by the media. As such, they say that this contradiction has compromised their ability to sell the produce, as the consumers assume that the prices are inflated by the retailers. They highlight the intervention of intermediaries as a reason for the inflated prices and request the respective authorities to intervene and settle the matter. Meanwhile, issuing a communique today, Secretary to the Public Service Commission M.A.B. Daya Senarath stated that the deadline for applications pertaining to the competitive examinations for recruitments in the public sector has been extended due to the current COVID-19 situation and travel restrictions. The candidates are allowed to submit their applications for the relevant examinations until the 15th of July.
The State Ministry of Cooperative Services, Marketing Development and Consumer Protection has decided to take measures to regulate the prices charged by certain delivery services at a reasonable level. What's more, it has also been made mandatory that all stockists and traders of certain selected goods to register with the Consumer Affairs Authority within a week. The move is intended to prevent hoarding.
A Gazette Extraordinary has been issued directing persons who stock corn, sugar, powdered milk, paddy and rice to register with the Consumer Affairs Authority with the aim of preventing stock hoarding. Importers, producers, mill owners, collectors, store owners, distributors or wholesalers will not be allowed to stock the relevant essential food items without being registered with the Consumer Affairs Authority. The relevant individuals are instructed to register with the CAA within a period of 7 days. The Gazette issued yesterday notes that the importers, producers, mill owners, collectors, store owners, distributors and wholesalers are required to provide information on the stock in their possession to the CAA upon request. The directives effective from the 11th of June, however, are not applicable to farmers who harvest rice and corn from their own cultivation. In the meantime, State Minister of Cooperative Services, Marketing Development and Consumer Protection, Lasantha Alagiyawanna, says that stock lists and traders can update details of their stocks via the official website of the Consumer Affairs Authority, www.caa.gov.lk. state.gov.lk. The State Ministry of Cooperative Services, Marketing Development and Consumer Protection has decided to take measures to regulate the prices charged by certain delivery services at a reasonable level. In a statement, the State Ministry said most consumers have resorted to get their essential items home delivered during the travel restricted period. However, the Consumer Affairs Authority has received complaints concerning the exorbitant prices charged by some delivery services. Following discussions between State Minister Lasantha Alagiyawanna and delivery service providers as well as the business community, a decision has been taken to implement two measures to ensure that the prices charged by delivery services are at a reasonable level. The first is to initiate registration of delivery service providers with the Consumer Affairs Authority and regulation to ensure reasonable prices. The second is to formulate a policy on calculation of commissions and transport charges and impose a reasonable cap for selected subsectors.
We will see you shortly. Bear with us. Welcome back. This is First at 9. Now, Karnataka and Tamil Nadu police have arrested 61 Sri Lankan nationals who were found living illegally in the two states, while 11 others had also been arrested for helping them with their stay. Indian media, quoting Karnataka police, say that the Sri Lankan nationals had entered India through the sea around March. After staying in Madurai for a while, some of them had moved to the Bengaluru and then to Mangaluru. Now, the report says that as per information available with Karnataka police, the Sri Lankan nationals had paid 1 million rupees to an agent based in Sri Lanka to take them to Canada. The group was slated to leave in container vessels, cargo ships or private boats from Tamil Nadu. The S&P 500 closed nominally higher yesterday at the end of the torpid week, marked with few market-moving catalysts and persistent concerns over whether current inflation spikes could linger and cause the US Federal Reserve to tighten its dovish policy sooner than expected. Economically sensitive smaller caps and transports notched solid gains, outperforming the broader market. For the week, the S&P and the Nasdaq advanced from last Friday's close, while the Dow posted a weekly loss. But the indices have been range-bound, with few catalysts to move investor sentiment. The Dow Jones Industrial Average rose 13.36 points to 34,479.60. The S&P 500 gained 8.29 points to 4,247.47, and the Nasdaq Composite added 49.09 points to 14,069.42. Among the 11 major sectors in the S&P 500, healthcare suffered the biggest percentage drop. The US Food and Drug Administration says that Johnson & Johnson must throw away millions of doses of its COVID-19 vaccine that were manufactured at a problem-plagued Baltimore factory, while also clearing millions for use. Reuters, quoting two sources familiar with the situation, say that the agency had cleared about 10 million doses. The New York Times said that the batches being discarded amount to around 60 million doses, citing people familiar with the matter. Without disclosing or confirming the number of vaccine doses, the FDA said in a news release that it had authorized 2 batches of the vaccine for use, that several other batches were not suitable for use, and that others were being evaluated. Safety concerns about the J&J vaccine, paired with flagging US demand for vaccination in general, have slowed rollout of the one-shot vaccine to a crawl. Close to half of the 21 million doses produced for the United States sit unused. Now then, seeking to rival China, G7 leaders have adopted a plan to support lower and middle income countries in building better infrastructure. President Joe Biden said he wanted the US-backed Build Back Better World plan to be a higher quality alternative to a similar Chinese program. In a statement at their summit in the English county of Cornwall, the G7 leaders said they would offer a value-driven, high-standard and transparent partnership. However, details of how the G7 planned to finance this remain unclear. German Chancellor Angela Merkel said the group was not yet at a stage to release financing for its initiative. The G7, the world's 7 wealthiest democracies, are also expected to commit to a new plan to stop future pandemics. And that's it from all of us here at First at 9. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.